Thank you, Representative Byrd. The House will come to order. Please join Representative Judah in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Shebel, please call a roll.
Representatives Amabile, Bacon, Baisley, Benavides, Burnett, Representative Burnett is here. Byrd, Bockenfeld, Basenecker, Bradfield, Caraveo, Carver, Catlin, Cutter, Doherty, Duran,
Here.
Esgar, Rep. Esgar is excused. Oh, hi, Exum.
Good morning, sir.
Sorry. Froelich, Geithner, Gonzalez Gutierrez, Gray, Hanks. Rep. Hanks is excused. Herod. Hanks on the way. Holtorf. Hooten. Representative Hooten's excused. Judah. Kennedy. Kip. It's here. Larson. Lindsay. Vontaine. Luck. Lynch. McCluskey. McCormick. McKean. McLaughlin. Michelson Janae.
Present.
Mullica. Neville. Ortiz. Pelton. Pico. Ransom. Rich. Ricks. Representative Ricks is excused. Roberts. Sandridge. Sirota. Snyder. Soper.
Here.
Sullivan. Tipper. Tatone. Valdez A. Valdez D. Van Beber. Van Winkle. Weissman. Will. Williams.
Here.
Woodrow. Woodrow's excused. Woog. Young. Mr. Speaker.
With 62 present and 3 excused, we have a quorum. I want the record to reflect Representative Judah was very punctual this morning. Representative Judah.
On that note, Mr. Speaker, I recognize the very justified fines that I've gotten for the multiple fumbles this week, the cow and missing this twice. So in addition to my fines, I am matching that fine with donations for our staff, and I'm paying it. So on that note, Mr. Speaker, I move the Journal of Thursday, March 17th, be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
Thank you, Representative Judah, and paying it forward is always a good thing. The motion before us is the adoption of the journal as corrected by the chief clerk. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Tried to sneak that one by, everyone. The ayes still have it. The motion is approved. Announcements and announcements and introductions. Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I have a very special announcement today. This is my daughter, Lennon, and this is her first time being around more than like 5 people at a time. So she's a little bit overwhelmed, but I think she's really excited to see where we make laws in Colorado and looks forward to meeting all of you.
Welcome, Lennon. Very, very cute. Representative Herod.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, we had the Appropriations Committee this morning, which means we have a joke winner. I gotta tell you guys, there's not much competition these days. I need you guys to know that from now on, we really need to step up the jokes a lot. But in spirit of still having to pick a winner, we're going to go this week with Representative Sullivan. Winner, come on down.
Winner. Come on down, Representative Sullivan. Of all the things to win in the March Madness week, there's nothing better than this.
Yeah, how much does this pay?
Minus 250. Representative Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in the spirit of St. Patrick's Day, I told the story about Mr. O'Shaughnessy who went to the doctors for his annual checkup. When he got all finished, the doctor said to him, you seem to be fine, but your heart's a little, but don't worry about it. If you take these tablets, you should be fine. But Mr. O'Shaughnessy said, well, doctor, do I have to take the tablets every single day? Doctor said, oh, no, you don't have to. He said, just take one on Monday, skip on Tuesday, take one on Wednesday, skip on Thursday. You should be fine. So he said, okay, took the tablets, went home. 2 weeks later, doctor's walking down the street and sees Mrs. O'Shaughnessy, says, oh, Mrs. O'Shaughnessy, how is your husband doing? She said, oh, he died of a heart attack. It's like, oh my God, what happened? I thought those tablets were going to be good for him. She said, oh, the tablets were great. It was the skipping that killed him.
I don't know if the practice of telling jokes at appropriations requires a recorded vote or not, on whether or not we continue. All right, further announcements and introductions. Seeing none. The next, I'm just joking, Representative Holtorf. I moved you fast enough so you couldn't bring your computer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I have to be careful how I move it in this chamber and around this building so I don't fall and have trouble. But what I really wanted to do, all joking aside, is talk about what's coming up next week. Colorado Ag Week is coming next week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. On Monday, our leadership out of the Ag Committee is going to have some very important announcements. And I just want to remind everybody how important agriculture is to our state. And now for the bad news, Mr. Speaker. You may have heard CSU did not win in the first round. I don't know what happened, but Michigan, in the last 2 minutes, brought the game to the hardwood. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Holtorf. I do believe that almost everybody had CSU in the bracket, and so that shows good loyalty. All our heart breaks for CSU not winning, and that's okay. They made the tournament. That's great. Further announcements and/or introductions? Seeing none. Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to proceed out of order for the immediate consideration of House Joint Resolution 1016.
Seeing no objection, we will proceed out of order for immediate consideration of House Joint Resolution 1016. Representative Rich.
Thank you,
Oh,
Mr.
I'm sorry. Mr. Shebel, please read the title of the House Joint Resolution 1016.
House Joint Resolution 1016 by Representatives Duran and Rich, also Senators Jaquez, Lewis, and Winter, concerning the recognition of National Women's History Month and in connection therewith designating March as Colorado Women's History Month.
Representative Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move HJR 22-1016 and ask that it be read in its entirety.
That is a proper motion. Mr. Shebel.
Whereas American women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our nation in countless recorded and unrecorded ways, especially in the areas of political and social change. And whereas the United States boasts a rich history of women whose vast and courageous achievements speak to the sense of excellence and potential shared by all Americans. And whereas our country would not be where it is without the strength, bravery, insight, and persistence of the women who have come before us. And whereas American women have played and continue to play a critical economic, cultural, political, and social role in every sphere of the life of the nation by constituting a significant portion of the labor force, working inside and outside of the home as everything from educators to astronauts. And whereas American women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, and other movements that create a more fair and just society for all. And whereas the fight for women's suffrage from the first Women's Rights Convention to enfranchisement lasted 72 years, with women from all walks of life, political views, and demographic backgrounds asking for the right to voice their opinions at the polls. And whereas before full suffrage, women in Colorado were only granted the right to vote in school elections. And whereas Susan B. Anthony and others traveled over mountain passes and to remote parts of Colorado to hold suffrage rallies. And whereas many referendums were proposed but failed because they were only voted on by men, and it took male allies to support women in their endeavor to vote, for it was sons, husbands, and fathers who ultimately heeded their calls. And whereas most of the women who asked for the right to vote never lived to see the enfranchisement of women. And whereas daughters, granddaughters, and great-granddaughters of the women who fought so hard to vote have made their voices heard at the polls for more than 100 years. And whereas women have not only played a critical economic, cultural, and societal role in our society, but women have also permanently changed the face of American government and politics. And whereas in 1893, Colorado was the first state to give women the right to vote through popular vote, and a year later, Colorado was the first state to elect women to the state legislature. And whereas on December 15th, 1919, Colorado ratified the 19th Amendment, and on August 26, 1920, after the remaining 35 states ratified the amendment, the 19th Amendment became law. And whereas, even though the 19th Amendment had passed, not a woman could vote yet. The struggle continued with the following activities expanding the number of women voting. The last treaty giving Native Americans the right to vote was passed in 1924, and at that point, all Native American women citizens could vote. The federal policy barring immigrants of Asian descent from becoming U.S. citizens was repealed in 1952, allowing women of Asian descent to vote. The Voting Rights Act of 1965, or VRA, signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson, aimed to overcome legal barriers at the state and local levels that prevented African American citizens from exercising their right to vote, as guaranteed under the 15th Amendment to the United States Constitution. And the VRA was later expanded to ensure that all election materials were also made available in Spanish so that all Hispanic American citizens had access. And whereas the first women elected to the Colorado General Assembly in 1894 were Clara Cressingham and Frances S. Clock, both from Arapahoe County, and Cara C. Hawley from Pueblo County. And whereas more than 200 women have served in the General Assembly since 1913, including Helen R. Robinson, who became the first woman to serve in the Colorado Senate, and more than 30 of those women have served in both the House of Representatives and Senate. And whereas past women of distinction within the Colorado General Assembly include include Ari Parks Taylor, the first African American woman elected to the Colorado General Assembly, Polly Baca, the first minority woman and first Latina elected to the Colorado State Senate, the first Latina in the nation to serve in both the House of Representatives and the Senate of her state legislature, and the first Latina to serve in leadership in any state legislature within the United States. Carrie Hawley, the first woman in the United States history to initiate and pass a bill which concerned raising the age of consent for women from 16 to 18 years old. Frances Clark, the first woman to chair a committee, the Indian and Military Committee. Betty Benavidez, the first Latina elected to the Colorado General Assembly. Norma Anderson, the first woman majority leader in both the House of Representatives and the Senate. Joanne Fitzgerald, the first woman minority leader in the Senate and the president of the Senate. Ruth Stockton, the first woman to chair the Joint Budget Committee and the first woman president pro tem of the Senate. Crisanta Duran, the first Latina Speaker of the House, and Lola Spradley, the first woman Speaker of the House. And whereas these pioneering women have paved the way for so many firsts in the current legislature, including Brianna Titone, the first transgender woman elected to the Colorado General Assembly, Iman Judah, the first Muslim elected to the Colorado General Assembly, Nikita Ricks, the first black immigrant elected to the Colorado General Assembly, excuse me, Leslie Herod, the first black, openly gay legislator elected elected to the Colorado General Assembly. And Danae Esgar, the first openly gay woman to serve in the House leadership in Colorado. And whereas women are running for office in unprecedented numbers following in the footsteps of these great suffragists, and whereas today women legislators play a vital role in addressing difficult social and economic issues and helping our country and the state of Colorado prepare for the future. And whereas Colorado has a high percentage of women serving in the state legislature at 45%, while the national percentage of women state legislators is 30.7%. And whereas Colorado currently has 45 women serving in the General Assembly, which is the largest number of women in the legislature in Colorado's history. And whereas such contributions and leadership in areas that help women improve their lives and the lives of those around them led the United Nations in 1975 to designate March 8th as International Women's Day, and led the United States Congress in 1987 to designate the month of March as National Women's History Month. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 73rd General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the Senate concurring herein, that we, the members of the 73rd General Assembly, hereby declare the month of March 2022 to be Colorado Women's History Month in recognition of the struggles, accomplishments, and contributions of American women throughout history.
Representative Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for your attention on this important resolution. I want to talk about a few women that were in the legislature, but were also not in the legislature, but had a lot of firsts. In 1893, the first woman who registered to vote in Colorado was our state's First Lady, Eliza Pickrell Rout, the wife of the state's first governor. In 1894, as we talked about, Clara Cressingham, at the age of 32 years old, she was the youngest of 3 women elected to the Colorado House of Representatives. She also became the first woman to fill a leadership position, Secretary of the House Republican Party. She was also the first woman to have a bill she introduced that became law. It boosted the state's budding sugar beet industry. Another bill she would introduce was to address the creation of free schools. As previously mentioned, Carrie Hawley in 1984 sponsored the bill that raised the age of consent from 16 to 18. Frances Clark was the first woman to chair a committee, Indian and Veterans Affairs, and to preside over the state legislature. She also protested the norms, including offensive language used on the floor during debate, lobbyists on the floor, and smoking in the chamber. And a fun fact about these 3 very strong women is that they were Republicans, so good on them. Mary Hawk Elidge Long was the first woman in the world to own and operate a zoo. She and her husband opened Elitch Gardens in 1890, and after her husband's death, she continued on as a pioneering businesswoman and entrepreneur until 1916. Mary Florence Lathrop knocked out a whole history of firsts. She started out as a journalist, then turned to law. She went to DU Law School with one of the highest scores for the Colorado Bar. It was a record held until 1940. She was the first woman to try a case before the Colorado Supreme Court in 1898. In 1901, she was invited to join the Colorado Bar Association, but she turned that down. She did not agree to join until 1913. Mary Lathrop passed away in 1951, but she left a legacy that is still with us today. An award in her name is presented each year by the Colorado Women's Bar Association to outstanding female attorneys. Thank you. My co-prime on this is Representative Durand, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Rich. Representative Duran.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So today, or this month, is actually incredibly important, right? It's Women's History Month. We are here today to honor incredible women who have worked tirelessly to make their voices heard. I'd like to personally recognize my mother, a first-generation Mexican-American. She taught me resiliency, courage, and work ethic. And as she fought to make sure that her voice, along with hundreds of others, were heard as she marched with Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez, fighting for fair wages, better working conditions, and the right to unionize. She is an incredibly strong woman, and I have her to thank for the woman I am today. We know as women and women of color, we continue to fight racism and sexism. I'm proud to be a member of this house, the People's House as we call it. And as a once single mom struggling to make ends meet, I know how challenging it can be to gain the respect within the community that has been historically dominated by men. The women we honor today and every day represent the progress we have made. I want to make sure that we recognize the Honorable Crisanta Duran, who should be up in the gallery. And I can't see from here, but if we could recognize her, that would be wonderful. We also have Joan Fitzgerald, Lois Bradley, and Norma Anderson, who are listening this morning. Thank you for all that you've done. You've paved the way for women like me and those that will come after me. However, while a lot of progress has been made, there is still so much work to be done. We hold the majority in the House, which is something those that came before us could only dream of. Despite these momentous accomplishments, women are still struggling with contemporary issues. Families still face insufficient child care, lack of caregiving support, which is disproportionately affecting women rather than their male counterparts. There is a lack of flexible and remote work, which makes it challenging in juggling raising your children as well as working your job. Flexibility is extremely important. We know there continues to be a gender pay gap. Why should a woman be paid less for doing the exact same work as a male colleague? Equal pay for equal work is imperative. We have learned we must work so much harder than men to accomplish the same things. I know many women in this chamber have experienced unconscious bias against them and their abilities to get their job done. A lot of progress has been made. However, there is still so much more to go. That's why this resolution is so important. I'm proud to honor all of these amazing women who came before us, who are here today, and who will trailblaze tomorrow. And whether you are a woman in STEM, construction, a doctor, a CEO of a company, or the CEO of your household, we recognize you, we honor you, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, Representative Duran. Representative Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm so proud to support this resolution and the achievements of so many fine women. While the resolution highlighted several accomplished women, and you've heard from more, I know there are many more firsts right here in this chamber. For example, my Women's Caucus co-chair, Representative Duran, who shares the distinction of being the first Latina in her district, along with Representative Tipper, who is the first Latina in hers. And also Representative Michael Sinjanay, who is, I believe, the first Israeli American in this chamber. So many of the women here inspire me every day. Thank you so much for fighting with poise and passion for the issues you and your constituents care about. Women have certainly come a long way. We didn't receive the right to vote until 1920, and it wasn't easily won. Women weren't allowed to open bank accounts and obtain credit cards until 1974. Women do not have pay equity. Women do not have equal opportunity. The Equal Rights Amendment, which would guarantee equal legal rights for all American citizens regardless of sex, has yet to pass. We still have a long way to go. According to the UN, there is established and growing evidence that women's leadership in political decision-making processes improves them. In Norway, for example, in India, the number of drinking water projects in areas with women-led councils was 62% higher than in those with men-led councils. In Norway, there is a direct causal relationship between the presence of women in municipal councils and child care coverage. And the list goes on and on. Further, women demonstrate political leadership by working across party lines, even in the most politically combative environments, and by championing issues of gender equality, including the elimination of gender-based violence, parental leave and childcare, pensions, gender equity laws, and electoral reform. And according to the Council on Foreign Relations, global GDP could increase 26%. By closing the gaps between women and men in the workforce, which would benefit both advanced and developing nations. This resolution celebrates the unique firsts achieved by women. I wish we didn't have to. I wish women succeeding was not something to be called out, but just business as usual.
Thank you, Representative Cutter. Thanks, members. Is there any further discussion on House Joint Resolution 1016? Representative Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to support this resolution. I do want to point out one part of it and channel my inner Jim Wilson on this to say, now what? And I do think it's worth pointing out that for all of the things that our state has done well by way of women, that we are one of, if not the only state that's never had a woman elected to the position of governor or U.S. senator in our entire history. And so we should think about that part of it. For all the success we've had, and we celebrate all the success we've had, we also need to think about how do we keep honoring women in the future and not just celebrating the firsts that they've had that have not put them in the largest positions of power, but making sure that we acknowledge and place women in power, because when women have power, then we have a lot more success and humanity in a lot of cases. So just yes to everything that was said, and also let's keep moving. Let's not stop where we are. Thanks.
Is there any further discussion on House Joint Resolution 1016? Seeing none, is there objection to a voice vote? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Joint Resolution 1016. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Joint Resolution 1016 is passed. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine for co-sponsors. Representative Exum, Hooton, Michelson, Janae, co-sponsor. Representative Van Beber, co-sponsor. Please close the machine. Majority Leader, Mr. Schiebel, please read Committee reports, or please read reports of committees of reference.
Committee on Appropriations, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following: House Bill 1001, 1004, 1118, 1157 as amended, 1202 as amended, 1234 as amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Committee on Education, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following: House Bill 1265 be amended as followed, and as so amended be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1276 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bills 3 and 121 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Committee on Energy and Environment, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following: House Bill 1249 be amended as followed, and as so amended be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. Committee on Finance, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following: House Bill 1129 as amended, 1212, 1232, 1235 be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. Committee on Health and Insurance, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following: House Bill 1019, 1136 be postponed indefinitely, 1064 as amended, 1263 as amended, be referred to the Committee on Finance with favorable recommendation.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the following bills be made special orders today, March 18th at 9:34. Senate Bill 83, House Bill 1001, House Bill 1118, House Bill 1202, House Bill 1222, House Bill 1288.
Seeing no objection, the bills named by the Majority Leader will be made special orders on Friday, March 18th at 9:34 a.m. Representative Cutter. Seeing no objection, Representative Cutter will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for reading a bill at length. Committee reports are printed and in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPads. Bills will be laid over upon motion of the Majority Leader, and the coat rule is relaxed. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of Senate Bill 22-083.
Senate Bill 83 by Senator Quorum, also Representatives Catlin and Byrd, concerning a broadband provider's use of the public rights of way.
Okay. Representative Byrd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 083.
To the bill. Representative Byrd.
Yes, Thank you, Madam Chair. So Senate Bill 83 is a great bill that strengthens our state's economy. Specifically, the bill will codify Executive Order D 2022-009, which requires CDOT to develop an electronic application, permitting, contract, and fee structure to facilitate access to public rights-of-way for the deployment of broadband. The bill also requires acceptances and denials by CDOT to be provided in writing and made available to the public. I ask for your yes vote, members. This bill will help all parts of our state gain crucial access to the internet and to broadband, which we know is necessary for education, for commerce, and just for living our daily lives. This will be something that helps lift up all parts of our state.
Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you.
Thank you. Members, this is one of those bills where people may not think about it a lot, but what this is going to do is going to allow the state of Colorado to have access to the right-of-ways of CDOT to allow broadband infrastructure to be placed in those right-of-ways. It also will standardize the prices, the terms, the conditions that CDOT will charge providers. Those of us in the big city don't really realize how big a deal broadband is. But in places that don't have it, Yellow Jacket, Colorado, Lewis, Colorado, Dove Creek, Colorado. Places like that are standing, waiting for more broadband to be brought there. We have fairly good here in the big city. I've got a place where I live that's not good at all, but that's all right. But the point I'm trying to make is this will help level the playing field for a lot of people in the state of Colorado. It will help the providers be able to deal and depend upon what kind of transaction the state of Colorado is going to enter into with them. This is a good bill. Vote yes.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 22-083. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 22-083 passes.
Mr. Shebo, please read the title of House Bill 1001.
House Bill 1001 by Representatives Cutter and Sullivan, also Senators Pedersen and Kolker, concerning a transfer from the general fund to the Department of State cash fund to allow the Department of State to reduce business-related fees.
Representative Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1001, and I also move the business, finance appropriations.
To the
Just finance?
Finance.
Finance and business.
And a business, right. To the finance report, Representative Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In finance, we had two different amendments. The second amendment, we clarified the fee reductions, that they were going to be a credit, so there was going to be a drop down when you go through the process to credit you on that. The second one was that it was going to be just for a year. And I ask for an aye vote.
The question before us is the adoption of the finance report to House Bill 1001. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The finance report is adopted. To the Business Affairs and Labor report, Representative Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We discussed it in business, and the bill passed out of business.
The question before us is the adoption of the Business Affairs and Labor report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The report is adopted. To the bill. Representative Cutter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is an honor to serve with you.
It is an honor to serve with you.
So this bill is all about keeping money in the pockets of small business owners. It'll keep $17 million in the pockets of Colorado's small business owners and entrepreneurs in the upcoming fiscal year. So it will reduce 5 common business filing fees down to $1. Colorado currently has over 860,000 entities in good standing, and this bill will waive fees that nearly every small business in Colorado pays each year. This new policy, through a credit, will drastically reduce new business registrations from $50 down to $1, annual business renewals from $10 down to $1, registration of new business trade names, currently $20 down to $1, renewals of trade names from $5 to $1. There's a theme. You get the theme. And renewing doing business as $10 down to $1. So it will ensure that the SOS the Secretary of State has the funds that the office needs to sustain its programs and operations and won't affect any transfers to other agencies and departments. This will be the largest effort to relieve business fees at the Secretary of State's office in decades.
Representative Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is another component of the fee relief package included in the governor's budget request to save Coloradans money. In a time when there are excess funds across state government, this is an opportunity to provide some targeted relief of fees that small businesses face each year. And I ask for your aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1001? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1001. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1001 is adopted. Mr. Shebo, please read the title of House Bill 1118.
House Bill 1118 by Representative Doherty concerning limitations on purchasers' claims for sales and use tax refunds.
Representative Lindsay.
Thank you. I move 1118 in the Finance Committee report.
To the report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We ran a few amendments in committee. Briefly, they clarified interest will be paid from the date the claim for refund was filed, but only if the date the refund is paid is more than 180 days after the filing date. We also agreed to sunset the interest on July 1st, 2026. We defined incomplete claims, allowed for the imposition of a civil penalty for any frivolous refund claims, removed the statutory definition of an incomplete claim and specified the necessary documentation for a complete refund claim, among other technical wording. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Doherty. Representative Benavides.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to move Amendment L005 to the committee report and ask that it be displayed.
Thank
Members,
you. Amendment L005 has been moved and is properly displayed. Representative Benavides.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, this is an amendment we talked about in committee and worked with the sponsor to have developed, is that there is a big problem with people filing refund requests, and these are refunds of sales tax, not refunds of income tax. And so because they're very time-consuming, the information that the department needs, they could just deny it and send it back automatically, but they keep getting them, and they keep getting them incomplete. But what they used was a term called frivolous, and frivolous has a different term in law, in many areas of the law, so it didn't seem like the most appropriate term. So basically what this amendment does, it gets rid of the term frivolous and just refers to it as a penalty for these claims that aren't fully developed when they're submitted. So I would urge a yes vote.
Representative Doherty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, this is an amendment we worked with Representative Benavides with, and I also asked for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L005 to the Finance Committee report. Those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The amendment passes. Okay, to the bill. To the Finance report.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Doherty.
Just to clarify, we're to the bill.
No, to the Finance report.
I have
Apologies.
nothing. What? I ask a yes for a yes vote on the finance report.
Those in favor of adopting the Finance report, say aye. And those opposed, no. And as amended. Finance report passes. Representative Doherty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Generally, the bill makes changes regarding sales and use tax refunds. First, the bill reduces the time frame during which interest is accrued on a sales tax refund. It creates civil penalties for frivolous claims of $5,000 or more. And lastly, establishes criteria for determining procedures and penalty notices and corrections to a claim and the circumstances under which the department may waive the penalty. I ask for a yes vote.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 22-1118. Those in favor say aye. Aye. And those opposed, no. The bill is passed. Mr. Sheeple, please read the title of House Bill 22-1202.
House Bill 1202 by Representatives Harrod and McCluskey, also Senators Zenzinger and Coleman, concerning the creation of a new measure in the public school funding formula for identifying at-risk students and in connection therewith, creating a working group in the Department of Education to implement the new measure in a future budget year.
Representative McCluskey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1202 and the Appropriations Committee report.
To the
And the Education Committee report.
To the Appropriations report.
Members, in appropriations, we did assign dollars for this working group that is going to help us implement our new at-risk definition factor and help us design a data collection and implementation system. I urge an aye vote.
The question before us is adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The report is passed. To the Education report, Committee report. Representative Harrod.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the School Interim Finance Committee from both sides of the aisle support this bill and this work to really make sure that our at-risk formula name actually reflects the needs in our communities. We did contract with a consultant who helped us walk through other options in other states beyond just using free and reduced lunch. As we know, many schools are not doing free and reduced lunch, especially through COVID, because everyone is getting meals. And so this allowed us the opportunity to rethink what we mean by at risk, to use community-based factors to ensure that we're adequately capturing the needs in our communities. I want to thank Madam JBC Chair and Chair of the School Interim Finance Committee, who has been working on this issue since your time here in the state capitol.
Thank you, Rep. Barrett.
To get us to this point. I'm just really proud of the work and glad that we can get this done for Colorado. I ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion on the Education Committee report? Representative McCluskey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to add that in the Education Committee, we did add additional representatives to our working group. That was a parent representative as well as someone from our school nutrition service providers. I urge an aye vote.
All right. Any further discussion on the Education report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Education Committee report. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The Education Committee passes. To the bill, Representative McCluskey.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank Representative Harrod for her excellent overview of what this bill accomplishes. She's right. People in the education community have been working for years, if not decades, to try and better define how we fund our public schools. We know that students who come from poverty, from disadvantaged backgrounds, need additional resources in the classroom. They need additional supports through tutoring, through special curriculum, through professional certifications for their teachers, so their teachers have the skills, the expertise to provide a level of support that may be greater than those needed for a typical student. So funding for students who are at risk at a higher level serves those schools and those districts where they have more students coming from poverty. Really proud that we were able to find a new definition through this bill. I'm looking forward to the work of this working group, what they're able to come up with over this next year so that the Interim School Finance Committee can review that and implement further changes to our school finance formula next session. I urge an aye vote on the bill.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 122-12. Wait a minute. Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1202 as amended. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 1202 passes. Mr. Shebel, please read the title of House Bill 22-1222.
House Bill 1222 by Representative Tipper concerning marijuana responsible vendor training.
Representative Tipper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee report and House Bill 1222.
To the committee report.
Thank you. In committee, we just made some language changes that better implement the intent of the bill in a way that brings all of the stakeholders on board. And with that, I ask for an aye vote on the committee report.
The question before us is the adoption of Business Affairs and Labor Report. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The report is adopted. To the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what this bill does is currently in state law, there is a voluntary designation called the responsible vendor designation. And in order to get that, an entity has to make sure that their employees get this responsible vendor training. They have to do it within 90 days of employment, and that training is good for 2 years. But a constituent came to me and he said, did you know that even though the employee is the one that gets the training, when the employee leaves and goes to a different entity, they actually have to redo that training, even though it's within that 2-year window.
Wow.
So the purpose of the bill is to make that voluntary responsible vendor training portable, and it attaches to the employee, to the individual. We worked with the business community in this space on this. We also worked with the MED, and everyone came to an either neutral or supportive place. Everyone agrees it's just a more efficient way to do this. It encourages individuals who maybe aren't in the industry but want to get in the industry to obtain that training, but because beforehand, the only way you could obtain the training was if you were employed somewhere. And like I said, if you left employer A and went to employer B, even 30 days or 5 days after you took the training, you had to redo it again. So I asked for your support. It came out of committee almost unanimously, and hoping for a yes vote on House Bill 1222. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I just want to thank the bill sponsor for doing the yeoman's work on this piece of legislation, and also thank the industry itself, because oftentimes we have industries such, and I think of bartenders. When I was a bartender, we do make sure that there is a certain level of training, but some bars do a good job of making sure that the training is of high quality, and other bars do just a very short course or something on the dangers of over giving too much alcohol to a certain customer. And I am also buying some time for my friends who are coming up right afterwards. But I really do want to thank the bill sponsor for this, and also thank the industry itself for really self-policing themselves in making sure that the employees that are working there, not only are the employees if they're working at a marijuana dispensary, they're one, background checked, 2, they're fingerprinted and background checked, and 3, they're highly regulated by the state of Colorado. But then there's this additional step that they go through for responsible vendor training. And so that this is the industry themselves coming to us and saying, give us a way within law to police ourselves to an even higher extent, and then the individual employees themselves can get this training. It's good for 2 years, and that makes sense because after 2 years, everyone probably could use a refresher course in their safety and well-being of their profession, if it's a profession that's dealing with something that could be a dangerous product, such as marijuana. So after 2 years, they'll have to get it again, and that's a very good thing. So thank you. Thank you, Representative Tipper, for bringing this bill on responsible vendor training. Thank you.
Representative Tipper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll take my turn at filibustering since we don't often get the opportunity to do that. This bill came from my constituent. So as I exit this, the chamber, it's actually really exciting to work on something with a constituent who came forward and identified an issue. He's a small business owner in my community and said, hey, elected official, do you think that we could work on this? So he took a lot of ownership over the bill, really contacted all the stakeholders, worked together to try and get a consensus, which he did. Then he came and testified in committee and just did a wonderful job. So overall, I think it was a great example of a bill that had a genesis in the community, representative government worked, the committee process worked, and I think we can all get behind the bill. With that, I think we're ready to move past this bill. Thank you. I ask for a yes vote on House Bill 1222.
Thank you, Representative Tipper. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1222. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1222 is passed. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of House Bill 22-1288.
House Bill 1288 by Representatives Titone and Soper, also Senator Smallwood, concerning increasing access to assistance for victims by providing immunity from prosecution for the offense of prostitution in specific circumstances.
Representative Titone.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and it's an honor to serve with you.
It is an honor to serve with you.
Thank you so much. I move House Bill 22-1288.
To the bill.
All right, thank you. Members, I'll talk to you a little bit about this bill in a couple different ways, and I'll bring up the technical aspects of the bill first. The bill on paper would give immunity to 3 petty offenses in order for that person to report a violent crime against themselves or a crime that they witnessed. But, how did this bill come about, you're probably wondering. Well, sometime last year, a friend of mine told me about a horrific event in her life, and she told me how she was brutalized for being a sex worker, something that she was doing to help make ends meet. And folks like this experience this and witness violence like this all the time, and they're told by the perpetrators that if they say anything, they're going to go to jail for the illegal acts that they're doing. Keep in mind that prostitution and the other 2 crimes made immune in this bill are now considered petty offenses. But how many of these folks even know that? Put yourself in their situation. After being raped or assaulted and under extreme duress, even the possibility of going to jail is a powerful motivator to keep quiet. I'm going to refer to sex work here, but in Colorado Revised Statute, it's not defined. So CRS refers to prostitution, and prostitution is sex work done without coercion. For others compelled into sex work for one reason or another, these individuals would be trafficking victims, and they're also covered in this bill. So no matter what the situation a sex worker finds themselves in, whether they're being forced to try to put food on the table for their family, or these folks who are being coerced into doing this, these folks are in danger every single time they engage in that activity. People who engage in sex work are human beings. The vast majority of people involved in sex work are not doing it because they want to. Whatever reason a person is engaging in sex work, they should never have to become a victim of a heinous assault or worse. The question is, will we continue to allow these violent crimes to happen to vulnerable people who are afraid to speak out? Or will we do something and pass this bill? Will we allow violent criminals to prey on these folks to, in some cases, become victims again? Giving sex workers the courage and opportunity to report violent crimes is good for everyone. If a person perpetrates a violent act against a vulnerable sex worker, it's easy for them to continue this kind of violent behavior. By giving sex workers and trafficking victims immunity from prosecution on the prostitution charge, we're giving them a chance to stop being a punching bag and give law enforcement the information to stop the violent offenders. It would not surprise me one bit if someone who assaults a sex worker doesn't also bring that violence back to their home, to their spouse or partner. Sex workers are easy targets for perpetrators to practice their violent tendencies. For the transgender community, who often turn to sex work because of unemployment, underemployment, and a variety of other discriminations that they face, they're often victims of violence in these circumstances. This is especially true for Black trans women who face violence at levels higher than any other group. This will help these folks be able to speak out and know that the violence they face will not be tolerated. Who is supporting this bill? CDAC, COVA, CICASA, Rocky Mountain Victim Law Center, Violence Free Colorado, and the Laboratory to Combat Human Trafficking. They're all in support of this bill. There is no opposition to the bill. So that's what this bill is about. It's about putting violent criminals behind bars and stopping the brutalization of people who don't deserve this kind of treatment. We heard from witnesses in the committee about what happened to them. Horrible, horrible violence. The crime of prostitution should never have to have that kind of violence be used as a punishment for them. And I see Representative Herod has some comments. And I will ask you to vote yes on this bill so we can help stop the violence.
Representative Herod.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the bill sponsors for bringing this bill forward. Representative Tatone, I think I'm supposed to say what your area, Arvada. My good colleague from Jefferson County and my good colleague from Delta County, or somewhere in Colorado. Oh, I can't, okay. For bringing this bill forward. First of all, I want to say how important this bill is. It's not often that people who are sex workers are acknowledged by legislators or acknowledged in this building at all. I am extremely, extremely proud that the sponsors of this bill have listened to a constituency that has been silenced for so long, Representative Soper, I want to say that I appreciate your work on this. I appreciate your work with people who have been shunned and shamed. And told that by society that they could be treated however anybody wants to treat them, and they have no access to justice or recourse. This bill changes that. And while I know that we have some compassionate law enforcement and DAs who have been acting in this way all along, we need to codify that in our law. And we need to make sure that we stop the abuse against our sex workers, especially those who are women of color, who are transgender, but also everyone in the industry. I just want to say, I think they're working on a quick amendment, but I want to say that I had an opportunity to visit Amsterdam a few years back, and I went to the red light district, and I had conversations with activists who were talking about providing more services and resources to the workers of the red light district. And I got to tell you, I told them that there's no way that would be something that we could do here in Colorado. But it's taken the leadership of Representative Tatone and Representative Soper to prove me wrong and to push a bill like this forward with bipartisan support and no opposition. So kudos to you. I look forward to this bill becoming law.
Representative Soper.
Thank you, Representative Herod, and also thank you, Representative Tatone. I also just want to describe one thing that the bill does. And to give just a little bit of a background here, according to the academic journal Women's Health, 82% of adults in prostitution had been physically assaulted. 83% had been threatened with a weapon, 68% had been violently raped, and 84% were or are currently homeless. Individuals who enter the sex trades are victims of human trafficking, victims of poverty. Our bill would grant immunity from being prosecuted for prostitution if the sex worker reports violent or heinous crimes in which they were a victim or a witness to law enforcement. This is very much needed because, as Representative Titone so eloquently explained, what ends up happening is the sex worker will be told by the perpetrator, who you going to tell? What are you going to do? Because you report this, you're also put in jail. So one thing that our bill does is it applies to provisions in Title 18, but we also, like all good bills, want to make sure that it applies to the equivalents at municipal court level. So I move Amendment L001 and ask that it be displayed.
Thank you. Amendment L001 has been properly displayed. Representative Soper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what this amendment does is it also applies what we have here in Section 1, Part 2, to the equivalent charges in municipal courts, because most prostitution charges actually occur in the municipal courts. I believe we actually only had 6 charges statewide in 2021 at the state level. The rest were at the municipal level.
Representative Titone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And, I said in committee that we had a perfect bill, and that was, of course, the reason why we have to have an amendment now, because I jinxed it. So just ask for a yes vote on the amendment so we can make sure this is a perfect bill moving forward to the Senate.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L001. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The amendment is passed. To the bill. Oh. Representative Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having worked in the prosecuting crime industry, you should know that the worst people in society figure out exactly how to target the people who are never going to be able to report on them. And where I saw this more than with respect to sex workers was with respect to the undocumented community. There were, and again, they weren't all men, but it's mostly men, who would go out and find women who were undocumented and then commit acts of dramatic domestic violence against them and said, if you ever say anything, I'm going to report you to ICE and have you deported. And so the worst, again, not all men, but mostly men, the worst offenders are the people who are evil enough to really think about I know I'm going to abuse someone, but how can I abuse someone and get away with it? Seek out the people who they think can't say anything about it. They seek out the most vulnerable and the most legally vulnerable. And this is a good example of that. And that's why the percentages are so high as to how many people have been abused, because they wind up interacting with the people who are purposeful abusers. And protecting those, I mean, again, literally, now U.S. Representative, then District Attorney Ken Buck, was incredible at prosecuting people who committed violence against undocumented women. And it's because he understood crime and persecution and prosecution and how it should work. And even though, I mean, if he were standing here today, he would tell you about his feelings about overall immigration policy, but his feelings about how victims of domestic violence should be protected regardless of their legal status, he would tell you that right now. And so this is really important legislation because it doesn't just, it protects the people who are targeted by the worst people in society, the people who know they're going to victimize somebody, they know they're going to do something that's illegal, and they want to find somebody that they can do something illegal to who won't have any protection. And so I think it's really important that we move forward with this. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1288. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. House Bill 1288 is passed. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Seeing no objection, the committee will rise and report.
House will come back to order. Mr. Shebel, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report has under consideration of the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof and making the following recommendations thereon. House Bill 1001 is amended, 1118 is amended, 1202 is amended, 1222 is amended, 1288 is amended, passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 83 passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Representative Byrd. Cutter, sorry. Byrd did the prayer, sorry. Representative Cutter. Thank you, Representative Cutter. That's a proper motion. There are no amendments at the desk. The question before us is the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. For those participating remotely, Representative Hanks, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Hanks votes no. Representative Van Beber, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Van Bever votes no. Representative Duran, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Duran votes yes. Representative Hooten, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Hooten votes yes. Representative Michelson Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson Janae votes yes. Representative Exum, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Exum votes yes. Representative Van Winkle is excused. Please close the machine. With 42 aye votes, 20 no votes, and 3 excused, the report of the committee of the whole is adopted. Co-sponsors. Oh, what? Sorry. Mr. Sheet will please open the machine. Just joking. Majority Leader Escar. Are we just at the end? No, we're not at the end. No. No. Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to lay over the balance of the calendar until Monday, March 21st, just because we all deserve a Friday afternoon.
Seeing no objection, the balance of the calendar will be laid over until Monday, March 21st. Announcements and introductions. Representative Sirota. I'm out.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Public and Behavioral Health and Human Services Committee will meet at 10:30 in room 112 to hear House Bill 1292, House Bill 1114, Senate Bill 77, and for action only, House Bill 1268.
Thank you, Representative Sirota. Representative Will and Representative Lynch and Representative Pelton. And didn't you use your chit for announcements and introductions already, Representative Holtorf? Representative Holtorf and Representative Catlin.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for letting all us rural representatives come forward. I'm going to let Representative Will begin a very, very important announcement for Colorado.
Representative Will.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Second annual Meet-In Day. So this year's events include a whole lot of things. Some of them in my country is Carbondale's celebrate Meet-In Day. You get a win for coolers, full beefs, support a great cause over there. And then have another one there in Hotchkiss. That's at Zach's Drive-Thru Burgers and Barbecues, one in Kremling and Northwest Ranch Supply.
Right there, the towns.
Silt, Colorado. The Miners Claim hosting a Meet-In Day featuring Chef Oscar's special selections of certified Angus beef. And also free burgers up in Steamboat Springs and West Slope. I'll bring in Representative Catlin to talk about the one at Montrose here.
Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
Honored to serve with you too, Representative Catlin.
Thank you, and I'd also like to invite you to a party. We're going to be having a meet-in Montrose. What happens there is the community descends on a car lot. They move all the cars off the lot so we can get everybody in town onto one spot. The producers there in the Uncompahgre Valley decided that they would like to do this for the benefit of the community and also to raise awareness to the cattle business, to the protein business, and to those of you who like to eat. And it's a great day. I went last year. It was one of those days that I'm glad that they did. And I'm really pleased that the producers in the state of Colorado have decided that Meet-In Day is something they would like to carry forward. Last year it was a response to something that had happened. This year it's a response to something that we can make happen. So those of you that enjoy a good hamburger, a T-bone steak, or any other type of animal protein, tomorrow's the day. Make sure and celebrate it with somebody you love. Thank you.
Representative Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am so excited that our governor gave us a great opportunity to show off Meat Day. But I'm also very proud that the largest gathering last year occurred in Eaton at the Double Check Arena. This year, they're taking it to the next level. We've got Joni Harms, DJ Bridewell, and the Catlin Auctioner as well that are going to be there with barbecue beef. But there's also going to be a concert. Last year, I think we had over 3,000 people. This year, I anticipate there will be even more. Fort Collins is doing some events at the Centennial Livestock Auction, which is actually right by my house, so that'll be easy to go to. But get out there and support meat. This is a great weekend to do it. We should have some good weather. Should be a whole bunch of meat eating going on. Thank you.
See no further. Sorry. Representative Soper, and then Rich, and then Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I just want to say missing Meat-In Day would be one big missed steak. But seriously, members, I do want to announce in Hotchkiss and all throughout Delta County, there's going to be Meat-In Day events. One is going to be held at Zach's Barbecue in Hotchkiss. You don't want to miss that. I will say down in Mesa County, Representative Rich and I, along with the Mesa County Commissioners, are hosting a agricultural appreciation dinner tomorrow evening because we believe it's important to thank our agricultural producers. Ag is Colorado's largest industry. It's how we get our food, and quite frankly, I'm a little bit biased, but I think I can be. Colorado has the best beef, we have the best peaches, we have the best corn, and the best chilies, especially the Pueblo chilies, not the New Mexico chilies.
Representative Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and very happy to host the appreciation dinner tomorrow night. But also the Mesa County Republican Women will be hosting a meet-in barbecue tomorrow starting at 11:30. And we had a huge turnout last year. I expect that we will again this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not going to be putting in near the miles this year. Last year I went to 4 events and over 400 miles. And this year I'm not actually going to be at any in my district, but there's one going to be at Joe's in that little community. The Rickery Young Farmers are putting that one on. Sterling last year had one of the biggest ones and raised over $100,000 last year for charities. So they're going to have another one at the livestock auction there. So, and then Yuma, the county commissioners declared this whole week, next week as Ag Appreciation Week, and there's going to be a meet-in event in Ray also, and then. And so then the one I am going to go to is in the district I'm campaigning for, which is an event.
Can't say that.
Oh, I can't say that. I'm sorry, I messed up.
I'll call
But
a point of
I'm going to
order.
be in another.
Madam Majority Leader.
I'm going to be in another county celebrating theirs.
You've definitely used all your chits, Representative Holtorf. Just joking. Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as Representative Pelton tries to crowd in on my district and my little communities there, I will tell you that Ordway, Colorado, Crowley County Meet-In Day, we'll have a free barbecue beef dinner at the Big Blue in Ordway, 4 to 7 p.m. I'll tell you, when you get to Ordway, it's not hard to find the Big Blue. You don't have to drive very far in our little towns to find, just look for all the cars and where all the people are, and that's where the party is. There are so many communities across Colorado, across the districts that all these fine ladies and gentlemen represent, that rely on the cattle business as their primary economic driver. Colorado needs to understand that. My urban cousins need to understand that. And we have to continue to support our Colorado beef industry every day in every way. I will tell you, I'm so excited for the weekend. I will be going to the Sterling Livestock Commission meet-in day. Last year, there were over 1,200 participants there. It has been the largest gathering, with the exception of the county fair in Logan County, of any event, because that is how important Colorado beef is to Logan County, a powerhouse of beef production. And I want to thank everybody here that is standing up and representing those cattlemen across this great state. So for those of you that have the opportunity for free food, and oh, by the way, does anybody know what happened last year in Denver, right here around the Capitol on meet-in day? Because I was in Sterling, Brush, and then I came to the Capitol. We had, our beef producers bought 5 food trucks, and for 4 hours financed their free distribution of meat products and beef products to anybody that walked up. I was here when that happened. Cattlemen from across eastern Colorado and western Nebraska supported and financed that. There were homeless people eating our fine protein product. There were visitors and tourists that were eating, and it was all free. And ladies and gentlemen, that was over a 10th, and first responders, thank you, law enforcement, and others. I will tell you, that was an over $10,000 investment, and I won't tell you how I know. I was a part of that. So Colorado cattlemen, we're out there for everybody. We're out there for all of Colorado, and we're out there to support a great industry that everyone in this chamber needs to embrace. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thanks, everybody. Representative D. Valdez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And with all this talk, I just want to say, beef, it's what's for dinner. Thank you.
Any other announcements, introductions? Representative Luck.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I just wanted to come down on this Friday and remind you all that you're loved and adored and worthy and amazing, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday. I do understand that many of you guys have assemblies this weekend, and so may you find much favor and enjoy your constituents.
Thank you, Representative Luck. Seeing no further announcements or introductions, Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House stand in recess until later today. Happy Friday.
Seeing no objection, the House will stand in recess till later today.